Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. I am so delighted to be talking to you again. I've been out and about for a little bit and just settling back into San Diego and the rhythm of things. And, when you see a friend, like somebody who just like kind of you see them and you smell the cookies in the oven, that is Korie Robertson. We've had so much fun over quite a few years. And she's just one of those voices that matters so much in my life. And so I thought, what better gift than to let you hear from the people that are influencing me so much. So Korie, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. I'm so glad you're on.
Aw, thank you. It's always just so much fun to get to talk to you.
Oh, we've had some good times over the years. I remember there was one gathering we did, and we went out. We actually recreated the same scene like 8 years later. But a lot of people were coming in on a boat, and we went out to meet them and greet them. And people were thinking when they saw from the boat, they go like, "Oh, that looks like Willie and Korie," and they were wondering who is dressed up like you. And then they realized, "Oh my gosh, that is you guys."
Oh my goodness, that was so much fun. And we just did it again. And that was so special because I was like, I wonder if we're going to get to like greet everybody again like we did last time. And
Yeah.
yeah, doing something fun and bringing back a memory with special friends is just the best.
Yeah, there's a difference between people that know of you and the people that know you. And so I can say I feel genuinely known by you and Willie, and I just love your family to pieces. There's more people that know of us. So like they will hear bits and pieces about you or me or whatever. And neither of us thinks we're living very noteworthy lives, but with that comes misunderstanding. People will hear of you and they'll have one set of things that, and it's not negative misunderstanding. Sometimes it could just be things people will think of me and they'll be like, he's the happy guy. He's the like yippee skippy. But even you and I in our friendship, we've had time we've both been in tears, like we've both been like gut punch, like hard,
Absolutely.
hard. So somehow what I hope that happens is that people get to know just less of you and they feel like they know more like who Korie Robertson really is. So for people like the people that have just recently landed on Earth, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, yeah, if you just recently landed on Earth, I guess you might not know that we had a television show called Duck Dynasty about our family that God just did crazy things with that we would have never expected. But one thing I wanted to say, as you were saying that about being known and just, I feel like it is in those times whenever you are like in tears or when you're going through the hard thing, that is when you grow closer. And something about you, Bob, that probably people don't know is that, and I didn't even really realize this about you, even at the time, I don't think, because I remember there was a point where I was telling somebody about you and I was saying, Bob is just really good at just being there with somebody when they're in the hard time or just coming alongside or like stepping in with that voice whenever they're going through something hard. And I was kind of saying that you do that for others. And then I was like, oh, wait, yeah, that's what he did for me too. And the very first time you reached out to me and we got to know you, we were in a kind of a whirlwind of a time. Our show was big and we were going through some difficult things with all of it. And it felt like a little bit of a whirlwind and like, what is happening? What's God doing and all that. And you just reached out as a friend and it meant so much to us. And you do that for so many people. So on a personal level, thank you for that, Bob. I
I'm
want
just
to get
thinking,
that.
some of you listened to the news reports. There was a little bit of weather that came through San Diego, but not like it goes through the Midwest. It was just like some little thing that people made sound like a big thing. And I know there were some people that had some setbacks from it, but not here on the water in San Diego. But we always call it boat drama. There are boats that come into the bay and they drop their anchor, but they don't set the hook. So they look like they're at anchor until the winds come up. And so last night at about 8 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, the winds came up like 50 miles an hour and the boat started dragging anchor and they're all coming towards the beach.
Oh
And so
no.
There was we call it, so around the house we're like boat drama. And so I jumped in one of the little boats we have and then went out and helped set the hook for some of the people that hadn't. We get another anchor and attach it and dig it in a little further. I think that's what we can do for our friends.
Hmm.
That like that we sometimes, if we're dragging anchor a little bit, like we've had something personally gone on, have a low point, like me, to have a friend like you I can share, like here's been a hard thing that's happened, and that we could just like go through that arc. I want you, whoever you are listening, to find a person that is either dragging anchor right now and you can help set the hook, or if you're dragging anchor a little bit, like tell somebody, man, this is a hard time. And you'll know they're the right people because it won't tell you what to do. They'll remind you of who you already are. And that's what think that you do for us. Who are among your go-tos? I know your family is really close. When you feel like you're dragging anchor a little bit, I know
Yeah.
there's you have a small group of women that are
Mhm.
tight. Like, how does that work? Just so people can understand how they might replicate that in their life. Just
Yeah. So I have a friend that's been like best friend since before we had babies. We've been through all the things together, and she's the one that it's like she knows the hardest of the hard, the worst of the worst things that I've been through. So I have that, and then also we have a group of just like six women that we get together once a month on Zoom, and we go through a book together or study together, and then we'll plan a little retreat that we get together. And that's something kind of new for me in my life because I think, I'm in a different phase. Like not every phase of your life can you do something like that. But now my kids are grown. So I'm like, oh, I can do a girls retreat, every once in a while. And I can do more in that phase. So I do think it changes over your lifetime. It doesn't have to look the same all the time. And whenever our kids were little, it was like all of our friends who had kids that were preschoolers at the same time, or, different phases that you go through, those relationships can shift and change. But, to have that stable relationship of somebody that knows you and has known you through all the phases is just really important and a blessing. And it's for my circle is pretty close. It's not like a big giant circle. I have this one best friend that knows everything. And then I have a group that I'll do this with and that knows a lot about what I'm going through at the moment. But it doesn't have to be big. It can just be one on one, just somebody that you really trust. And
yeah,
that you.
think about that. You'll have, I know I've written about that before. You'll have about room for 7 people around your bed on your last day here, 8 if they're thin. And to just say, who would be your 7? Who would be your 8 people that you'd have around you on your last day? And why don't you just be intentional about encircling yourself with some of those? And for some of you listening, you go like, I don't know, man, I'd be stretching to get to 1. Be like, awesome. Everybody you talk to today, everybody I talk to today, I feel like I'm interviewing for the job of being one of my 8. Like, I just like there's always room available. But if we take you don't need a Bible verse or everything, but it's Philippians 2:20. It says the thing about Timothy that Paul liked a lot. He said that's a guy who takes a genuine interest in other people's welfare. And I would say that's one of the hallmarks I've noticed of you in the way that you care for the people around you. You just take a genuine interest in people. And that's something that we can do. Just take a genuine interest. Here's one thing that gets in the way, that we have unresolved stuff. Like, and not like everything needs to be resolved. I'm speaking to, it's a group of 7,000 therapists. Can you imagine? This is Maria's dream, by the way, that I would be in the room with 7,000 therapists. But she would want them talking to me, not me talking, because I got nothing to share with them. I'm going to feel so lame. I'll feel like, what do you think I mean right now? What do you think? What do you think? So I had a little setback. And there was something that just didn't go the way I was hoping it would. And that one got all sorted out. Then maybe a month or 2 later, something else came up and was the same person. And I realized that I had some unresolved stuff from before because I said something in this, not mean or harsh. I just said, hey, I'm not available for something that I actually was available for. But I realized, oh my gosh, I've got something unresolved. If you follow that tragedy in Lahaina, that the trees burned down, but the roots are still on fire a week later. And I realized, oh my gosh, my roots are on fire. Like
Mm.
there's something. So part of going deeper, part of finding your 6 or 7 or 8 people is to realize, are your roots on fire with something? And what can you do to put out the fire that's under the surface? Like the thing that is slowly burning. I know what they're doing in Hawaii. They're sending people with bottles of water because the fire trucks can't get into these remote areas. And they just take a little bottle of drinking water and they put it on the roots, fires out.
Wow.
So, what are the things that you do when you have something unresolved or a little bit of a internal audit that you do? Help us figure out, because the thing that gets in the way of us going deeper with people is sometimes our roots are on fire about a previous relationship or a time that you literally got burned, or what do you do?
Mhm. I think something that I feel like I've learned from our kids and I'm learning as I get older is the more you just are honest and talk about the things that you're going through, the more you really allow other people to speak into your life and help you with it, And so I feel like over the last, I don't know, probably 5 years, I've gotten better at that. And whenever I'm going through a problem, I'm just like, okay, who do I know that maybe could help me in this or could know something about this? And I just go to them and I'm like, hey, here's what I'm dealing with and here's what's going on here. And like, I'm not dealing with this very well. Do you have any advice for me in it? So just like speak up and be vulnerable and ask for advice and really listen and take it. And that's something that I think that like I've seen that in my kids because I want that in them. I want them to come to me with their problems. I want them to like be open about it. And so in wanting that for them, I know I have to do that for myself too. And so I think for me, it's just, opening up and being
Yeah.
honest and
Yeah.
vulnerable.
And sometimes seeing that there's probably, obviously, if there was a little kerfuffle, there's probably something bigger going on in my life that I got a blind spot to. I
Yeah.
remember a number of years ago, my left eye stopped working, just like quit. It just went missing for maybe a year, and 8 operations later, like I could see again. But for that whole year, I had a patch on my eye, mostly to let people know I can't see you if you're on my left. If I didn't have a patch on, I'll like, look, I'm not trying to look like a pirate. I'm just giving you fair warning. This is a blind spot. I would
Yeah.
get to like intersections and like turning right, it was awesome, but turning left, it was like rock, paper, scissors every time, like coming through. Sometimes to identify a blind spot, there's been a little ruffle that kicked up, and then use that as a sin to say, look, what vibe am I putting out, or what am I releasing into the world that is causing that to happen? Instead of saying I'm either the hero or the victim, but to say I'm just a participant. What is it that is going on if I kind of trace the breadcrumbs back, and something that I have some agency and control over that I could change? And it feels like a really honest conversation. You don't need to beat yourself up. You can just have it. Do you tend to be really kind to yourself when you're having things, or do you beat yourself up?
I'm not one to beat myself up. I will say, I don't think I'd beat myself up. Now, I will say, I ask myself all the time, like, is there a blind spot here? And I remember, so this is funny, remember the Enneagram became like this big thing.
Yeah.
Family was kind of getting into it and reading, and we love it. And it has really been very helpful for our family. But I remember at first I was thinking I was a 9, which a 9 is called the peacemaker. I was like, hey, blessed are the peacemakers. I definitely want to be a 9. Surely I'm a 9. And Willie was like, you're not a peacemaker. And I was like, what? Yeah, what? I was like so offended by it. But then it took me, I had to like think about that. It's like, how do you see me? And, he's my husband. He knows me the best. How does he see me? Am I a peacemaker? I'm okay to fight. Like, I'm willing to fight. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. So, but there was something about that I saw, oh, this is how I saw myself, and thought, oh, this is how I am. And he was like, no, you're really not. You're more of a fighter than you maybe know about yourself,
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting for me. So I do think, those trusted people that you can say like, oh, who I think I am. And then they can say, no, actually this. And then you can look at that and be like, oh, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And when the way that it's bad, how do I get better at it? And
Yeah, yeah.
I do think I am a constant learner. I want to always be learning. I want to be humble. I hope that I'm humble in that, and that when somebody tells me you're not that, you're not what you think you are, I can really listen and receive that. I hope and pray
Mm.
that I am.
Yeah, I think of the like a wave, there's a front and back side to every wave. And so the front side can be like engaging and jumping in on the conflict to say, hey, listen, we got to sort this out. The backside of that is this beautiful, scrappy nature that makes you resilient. Like that's actually where a lot of power comes from. So to just understand what are our factory settings, and then what are the people that God's dropped in our lives. Like he doesn't pass us notes, he gives us each other. And to say, what are the people? One of the guys that you've been to San Quentin, we'd been to the big house together.
Yes.
So I remember in San Quentin, all the like guards and everybody wanted to like see you and Willie. They're like, this is so cool. But in San Quentin, there's one guy in particular, and he taught me about it's 2 Peter 1:3 or 3:1, and it says that God's already given us everything that we need to lead beautiful, godly lives. And think about that for a second as you're listening. Like that, if you did an audit of everything that you need to lead a beautiful life, like you don't need anything added to your life, you got it right now. And oftentimes, I don't think of things like house, car. You know, we had a dog we didn't even want, but like I'd say what he gives us is people. And to say among this audit of people, and we come in so many different flavors, again, I'm back to your 6 cows that you meet with, or that one long-term one.
Yeah. I love that scripture because it is so easy for us to think, oh, if I had that one other thing, and thinking about like someone in San Quentin, someone who's in prison sharing that scripture with you too, because like that's when it becomes real, whenever you're in the place where you're like, oh, I don't have all that I need.
Yeah.
And then you read that and then you become aware of like, oh, actually it's all internal. It's here. It's within people. It's in because we're made in the image of God. It's here. It's not some external thing that I'm waiting for, that I need, or that I have to have. And it's so easy to, follow the way of the world and be like, oh, if I could just get there, or if I could just get this one more thing. But I know I remember whenever our show ended. So we did a show called Duck Dynasty for 5 years, 2012 to 2017. And when it ended, I remember being in this place of like, and we were happy that it was ended. We were ready. It was great. It was an amazing run, but we were ready for it to be done, And I remember I'd go around and people would be like, well, what's next? What's next? And I felt like I had to say something, but it was really nothing. We had just ended a crazy run, and we were just like, we're shutting some things down. We're not doing anything right now. Like we need some time to just kind of pull it in, assess the situation. But I remember feeling like I had to have an answer for what's next. And then I was like, oh, and who am I if I don't have something else? Oh, well, we're going to do this, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And I'd be like, well, really, we're just kind of being, like we're running our business.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. But I don't know. I would just remember it feeling like I had to have something but what I was doing was enough, because I was raising a family and we were running our business and we were doing just our normal life,
Yeah, it feels like there is a subtle pressure to have the elevator speech that is points toward this up to the right kind of trajectory in your life, that I moved on to this and now I'm off to this thing. And that's a beautiful and good thing if that's your trajectory. But to feel like you need to contrive that to have the story. So what I would do is say, come up with an alternate story that is really authentic and true. To say, I'm just figuring it out. Because I think a lot of people, kind of like me at the intersection, it's rock, paper, scissors. Like we're just trying to figure it out. But what I'm trying to do is to say, I'm available to these kinds of things right now. And that's been a great kind of shame-free, stress-free way. And I actually spent the whole summer writing a book called Available. And I was thinking about for a guy who has been like weirdly available for a long time,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is I want to continue to be available, certainly, but I want to be available to new things. And so it isn't like chucking something or saying that doesn't matter. It's just I'm available to, and that would be just such a great way to start phrasing things. Man, I'd be available to some new friendships. I'd be available to maybe, if you're caught up in a cycle of accumulation, all that, take a vow of poverty. You say, I'm going to see if I can live for nothing for a week. Just go to Costco, eat the samples. You can get to SeaWorld. You get 1 hour for free on a shopper's pass. So if you don't want to dish over $100 for a ticket, 1 hour, you got to be running, but you could see the whole thing. So to just say, I'm available to a new something, don't wait for January 1st. That's for rookies. Just say like right now, at this point in time, I'm available to, and it really is answering the question Jesus asked people, what do you want? I know one of the things you've made yourself available to is producing and getting behind movies and all that. And there's so much interest in your family, and each of the dynamics of your family are just so interesting, even in and among themselves. So tell us about this new project that's coming out. You have a film coming out that talks about family members. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we do. So in that time of what is next for us and what is next in our life, I felt like we really had this incredible opportunity to be on television and to make an impact in the world through a little funny TV show, that was about our family, just quirky television show about our family, and just saw the impact of that, and saw the impact of entertainment and how art and entertainment shapes people and shapes our culture. And so that was really what we just wanted to do more of. We're like, this is something that we felt like we were able to do. And how do we do more of that? And so it was during that time we spent some time in prayer and just said like, God, how can we do more of this? And we started a production company called Tread Lively. And our goal is really to just tell stories that are true and hopeful and life-giving. And we are coming out with our first feature film this year, called The Blind. Yes. And it really
The Blind.
Well, here we talked about being blind in one eye.
Come on.
This is kind of a double meaning. So our family duck hunts. And so you sit in a blind, which is a place of concealment. It's a way to conceal you from the ducks, from the animals. And then, there's a scripture about I was once blind, but now I see, and what that looks like whenever you come to Christ, when you come into faith and you were like, it feels like that you were blind, like you couldn't see it before. And then all of a sudden you could see. And, just that idea of darkness to light. And so the movie's called The Blind, and it's our family story. It's the origin story of the Robertson family. And you mentioned that kind of upward trajectory to the right that you think of sometimes when you see people with like success or fame and fortune, that like, oh, their life must have just been an upward climb all the way here, which is really kind of never the case. And in scripture, as you read the stories of the people that are in the Bible, they're never this kind of like perfect upward trajectory to the right. So our family story is a hard one. The first 10 years of Phil and Kay, this is Willie's parents, their life story was difficult. She got pregnant in high school and they went off to college together, and their life just took a bad turn. Phil was an alcoholic and adulterer and all the hard things you can imagine. And they reached a point where it looked like their family was over. He had kicked her out of the house, and you would think, this whole family story is going to take a whole nother path. And then, a man walks into a bar and shares Jesus with Phil, and their life changed forever because he actually turned his life to Jesus. He surrendered. There's a line in it where he says, I had to reach the end of myself to find the beginning of God. And this movie is, it's a film about faith and a redemption and forgiveness and all that, but it's real and it's gritty, and it doesn't feel like maybe a Christian film that you might expect, because it does show the hard stuff. And I think that, to really understand the redemption and what Jesus did for us, you have to see the hard and see the fall, and to understand how far you can, be away, that God is always going to continue to chase after you. You're never too far. from him.
Yeah, I like that message. And there's a tendency to want to kind of do a green screen in our life where you have like who you are, but it's in front of this green screen and you put this make believe background. Like it looks like you're Yosemite. You ain't in Yosemite. You're in a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah.
And to say, I don't want to green screen it. I'm not trying to Photoshop my life to talk about what I want everybody to perceive it to be. I want to get real enough to understand what it is so I can see what the blind spots are, so I can find 6 or 7 people to gather around me. And so as you're listening to this, if any of this resonates with you, if the things like ping you, think of that as maybe a nudge from God to say, take a courageous step. And like God never compares what he creates. So your leap might not be compared to somebody else's leap, but to say whatever would be a leap for you. Something has got your roots on fire. Like you don't need to go do something big and massive, maybe just a text message saying, hey, we're good. Like just like that, like to say, you might get question marks back, but take that step. And as we kind of land the plane with our time, and I'm just so grateful for having time with you, Korie, because you are a voice that is true, that's consistent, that's kind, eminently humble. Like you're just a humble model. Like I know people have those like, what would Jesus do? But I'm like, what will Korie do?
Oh my
Like the impact you guys have had in our lives. And it's not because of accomplishments, it's because of character. And
goodness.
so find people of good character, surround yourself with them, and then be like you. Don't be like them, but just have them like start pointing to you. God has given us everything that we need to lead beautiful, godly lives. And he's dropped some beautiful people in it, and he's given you some ambitions. I'm glad one of your ambitions was to make beautiful movies. The Blind, September 25th. And go see it. And if you want to do a solid for a writer, an author, then you pre-order their book because that's the way Amazon has enough. If you want to do something solid for somebody who makes movies, like you want to do a standing O for them, go on the day it's released. Like that is how you give a high five to somebody in the community because then everybody watches that. So Korie, thank you. Love to your beautiful family. Hugs all the way around. That would take a minute to hug them all as they are all increasing in number. But we love you. We love you. We love you.
Love y'all too. Give everyone a hug from me.
Hey, you guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. And here's the deal. The next 5 minutes is the best 5 minutes. Here's what I mean. Don't just agree with something you heard Korie say. Go do something about it. Like big or small, you pick. But send the text, pick up the phone, make the call, drop the note. You get to, if your roots are on fire, figure out what are they on fire about, and then let's just go figure it out. If you can't figure it out, find a counselor to help you figure it out. But make a bold move. And what you'll do is you'll be moving your faith from just a bunch of stuff you agree with to what you actually do with it. And so make those moves, you guys. And we'll talk to you next week.
Access more